Bye, everybody. Come and see me sometimes.
Testing.
It's a great pleasure to welcome up the writer-director Todd Stevens and the star of the movie, Udo Kier. Star of the movie, living legend, global film icon. It's Boxwater. It's very green. The kids made me switch over to water that's served in paper.
Okay, I gotcha.
Thank you both so much for being here. Welcome to our first event back in this theater since March 2020.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's good.
Are these on? Is this on?
Is it
Yeah,
on?
actually, Dan,
No.
can we turn these up? I'm sorry, I
No.
think we'll take the buzzing sound that we were getting in exchange for a bit more amplification.
Hello, hello, hello.
Sorry,
Okay.
we're still getting over some of the ghost in the machine from having been
Hello,
shut down for
hello.
16 months.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So, okay, sorry. I think that yeah, that's getting better. So this is based off of a real person, and I was reading that you had originally written a role inspired by Pat in another film, but you had to cut him, and then you came back to his story later on, and I'm curious to know what brought you back to him at this point in your career. I mean, why now? And you know, what sort of inspired to tell this entire film from his point of view?
I always knew that that I wanted to make a film about Pat. You know, I mean, he had a big I'm kind of like the Michael Urie character in the movie. You know, it's like I never really knew. I only knew Pat sort of like from a distance, so I never really knew him very well. But growing up in this small town, feeling like I didn't fit in, he really was. He was kind of like an alien, you know, a beautiful alien, and it just really had the courage to be himself in the 70s and 80s, long before, you know, that was really safe or acceptable. And I just always looked up to him. So I kind of knew. I always knew that I wanted to make a story about Pat. Yeah, my first film, Edge of 17. I wrote him, Pat, Mr. Pat, as the mentor to, that was like my autobiographical coming out story set in the 80s, and it's on Netflix now, by the way, if you want to check it out. But yeah, I wrote a Mr. Pat character as my mentor, but we decided to cut the character out of the film because we literally could not find the right actor to play the part. So Leah Delaria's role in the film got expanded, and all the Mr. Pat scenes became Leah's scenes, and she wound up doing great. But it's a tough part to cast, you know. So I think I just had to wait until I found the right actor to kind of play him. You know, took 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
What did it? I mean, was it actually, you know, finding Udo that inspired deciding to make the film?
No, I mean, at a certain point I decided that I was going to do it, but it literally, we were casting it for like, trying to figure out the casting for a year and a half or so before we actually, you know, it clicked in to happen, you know. It's a tough part. It's a tough part to, you know, to not have it be over the top or overdone, you know, and I mean, and Udo and I really wanted to keep it very natural.
Well, I
Not
so.
overdone. All right. It is though.
Well, I have heard from filmmakers that Udo, that you bring a lot of ideas to your roles, and that there is just, I mean, there's so much life in this character. I can't imagine that this character didn't go through a lot of metamorphosis once you were cast. So can you guys talk a little bit about what the character was on the page and how that changed once you guys came together?
Well, first, good evening. Thank you for coming.
important for me always in 50 years working as an actor is the script, of course. To see the script, and he sent the script. I liked it, and I wanted to meet him and see what kind of person he is. Because if I wouldn't have liked him, I would have never done the movie. But I liked him, and he talked to me all about the real Pat. And I liked it for the reason, there's many reasons, but the main reason was the conflict of generation, that an old man who was, when he was young, a flamboyant hairdresser, and then being in the home folding little paper towel to get the time pass by, and smoking his famous cigarette, hiding them everywhere. And then I said, okay, I like to play the role, but we have to shoot as chronological as we can. And so we started really in the retirement home. I wanted to be a day or two on my own, without camera, without director, just to get a feeling for the room, for the bed, how comfortable it was or not comfortable. And then that's what we did, and we started shooting then chronological, first in the retirement home, and then on the street, then the hitchhike, and all that for the whole film. And for me now, I saw another 50 minutes of the film, but I like the film, not because I'm in it, but I like it. And it is basically, there is no makeup in the film, and there is no acting. It was like I knew the character, and I met real friends of Pat, and they showed me how to hold the cigarette and things like that. So I learned from the friends how he was talking and all that. And we shot in Sandusky, I'd never been there before, and the whole street became our studio, because there were the store where I got my suit, there were the theater. So basically I stayed most of the time in that green suit, and everybody accepted me in that green suit in the bar and everywhere. And so that was, for me, this film is very important because it was an amazing experience to do the film without being dramatic. I mean, of course I'm dramatic, but not dramatic in fake drama. It was real drama and real feelings, and the actors were all, from small parts to bigger parts, they were all amazing. Jennifer Cooley was great, Linda Evans, they all were real. It was real. You see, that's the difference. I work a lot with 30 years with Lars von Trier, and his favorite word is don't act. And that's what we didn't do. We didn't. We had a good time making that movie, and the script was very strong. So there was a guideline I had all the time in front of me when I wanted it or when I needed it. So I had a great time, and just the 50 minutes I saw now makes me very sad. It makes me sad, but not in a negative way. It makes me sad in a happy way, what I did, and which is direction, of course. And it's real. There's nothing which is, even the movements are real. Everything is what a person would do in my age group, going to a town, seeing, coming from a generation where people went to a gay club and they looked left and right first if they could go in, that the neighbors didn't see them, and now they're holding hands at Applebee. So it doesn't really matter, and that was for me the main reason to do the film, of the conflict of age and generation. I mean, if you would have told anybody 20 years ago one day in America two men can get married and adopt children, or two women can get married, so you would have said, you're crazy, that never would have happened. It did happen. So it's amazing how quick this whole thing went, and I'm very happy for Todd that he made that film. I'm happy for me that it's like the critics, which is so strange. I made so many films for 50 years with the best directors, some of them are in the world, and I made Todd the film, and the headline is, after 50 years, finally Udo Kier became a leading man. Which is amazing. That, it's Blade and Armageddon and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, all the films I did. But I understand why, because I had small parts, and the people don't lose a lot of words. I say, oh yeah, he's always such a good villain. He's amazing, but that's it. But now in his film, the people follow a character, sad and happy, and that's why I'm happy that he made this film a bit.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's amazing to give Udo the opportunity to show his full range of everything that he could do, you know, and that was an honor for me to. It was actually a little bit of risky casting. I mean, to be honest, you know, like, don't joke. No, but I mean, you know, one of my casting directors suggested Udo. I wish that I was the one who thought of it, and I was like, wait a minute, you know, like, he's got a German accent, and the real Mr. Pat's not from Germany, he was from West Virginia, and
Well, my family was Jewish, and they left just before the war.
Exactly, right.
My grandmother.
Yes. But I, you know, and obviously, I mean, I knew Udo from my favorite queer film, My Own Private Idaho,
You
yeah.
said word queer.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. But
queer means, I looked it up, queer means strange. That is the translation of queer. Strange.
well, that's what it
I'm
used
not
to mean,
strange.
didn't it? Well, so yeah, but I mean, I remember Udo from from the Andy Warhol movies and Suspiria, and but you know, I mean, he wasn't a villain in My Own Private Idaho, but like a lot of times he plays like a bad guy, obviously. So I'm like, you want me to cast this dude that like plays a villain and has got a German accent, and but as soon as I thought about it, and then I was like, wow, it's perfect. You know, the real Mr. Pat had really big, beautiful blue eyes too, like Udo, and that reminded me of him a lot. And we got Udo the script. He really responded to it. I hopped on a plane and visited him in Palm Springs, where he lives, and we just clicked. I mean, as soon as I saw him, I knew that he was it, you know, and he liked me and I liked him, so that was a cool thing. But yeah, I hope. No, but I mean, it was a little bit of like risky casting in a certain sense, you know, like, and I think that, to me, I think people need to think a little more outside the box with casting in general, and just be more open-minded to, you know, all ethnicities, all, you know, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to be so, like, you know, locked in a box these days, you know.
Well, I mean, one of the, that's really interesting that, you know, you did cast from a completely different ethnicity, because I am curious to know a little bit about how you dramatized Pat's story in a way that maybe was sort of like fictionalizing bits from his life to make it a fun story that honored him without necessarily having to be, you know, the minutia of like precise details.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of research. I hung out with his sister, who's still alive. I hung out with his nieces and nephews, you know, and they, you know, all that's left of Pat fits in a shoebox now, basically. And a couple of his necklaces, his rings, a couple of letters, and his date book from his salon. And they told me all about Pat. And, I knew him a little bit, I observed him, but I also hung out with his friends, and they told me, like the napkins thing, that was based on real life. After Pat passed away, they went through all his stuff, and there were boxes and suitcases and everything filled with these napkins. That's what he did, So I tried to take the essence of Pat, but the actual plot of like on this last journey to do the final hairdo, that's something that I invented. But and we weren't trying to get Pat like exact. There's no video of him. Like that photograph you see in the end of the film was one of the only images like left. And so we didn't really have a ton to go on, but we weren't trying to, we were trying to like do our interpretation of Pat. Not.
Tell me, was the ash in the whiskey anecdotal or
I just made that up. I don't know where the hell I got it. Yeah, I don't know where I got that.
It's exceptional.
Yeah, thank you.
So well, let's talk about some of these sort of character quirks, because I mean there's just so many wonderful things. So all right, so the napkin, that does come from a real thing.
Yeah.
What about the hair care product? I mean, was that a real thing?
No, I made that up too. Yeah, it's Vivante.
It's like a sort of like this mythology that I'm like, I was alive, in the 80s and 90s, so I'm like, did this thing exist or not?
We try to make it like, those fabulous, like, gee, your hair smells terrific, and all those kind of crazy beer, shampoos and all that.
That sounds like L'Oreal.
Yeah, exactly.
Vivante from L'Oreal.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, Vivante means to live.
To live.
And that's what the movie is about to me. Is about living and a character that had lost his joy for life and lost life and rediscovered it. So that's how I came up with that.
Let's talk about the pantsuit, because I mean, once Pat is wearing it, that character is just comes to life. I love the fact that Pat is still wearing those shoes up until just about the end of the movie. But the pantsuit really it's sort of like the whole character is suddenly revived. So what kind of conversations do you guys have about costume?
Well, I mean, it was all written.
By the way, this was a coincidence tonight.
Well, the green, yeah, totally, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was really written into the script that it was like a 70s pantsuit kind of thing. And interestingly enough, it's actually a woman's suit. Mostly, and my costume designer found it on Etsy. There was they did sketches and stuff of like maybe we would create a suit from scratch, but we couldn't afford it, because it's a pretty low budget film. So, but also actually buying real vintage suit, it just like has an authenticity to it that something that you create doesn't quite, there's something lost in the translation. So, I really owe a lot to my costume designers. Like when they first talked about like, at the beginning, he's wearing the sweatpants and the gray, and it's like he's almost, I think I said that he's like a chameleon, he just blends into his room, it's like he's lost himself. But Kitty Boots, my costume designer, was like, what if he was wearing like this faded, Pat like loved poodles, and they always had, he and David always had poodles. They had paintings of the poodles like commissioned and hanging in their house. And what if she was like, what if there's just like a faded, poodle t-shirt? Actually, the real Mr. Pat, one of the other, photos of him, he's wearing like a poodle sweater, And so we were like, whoa, let's create this poodle t-shirt. It's like, there's still a shadow of the person, the vibrant person. It's still in there somewhere, So I just love that it's such simplicity with the costume and, the pink hat, and then it's like such a simple evolution. But, to me, when I watch the film and Udo steps out of of the dressing room and, goes and looks at himself in the mirror, I mean, he just looks like a boy, like, you know what I mean? It's like, he looks so beautiful, and, the suit is amazing.
Obviously the chandelier hat is really exceptional. What was it like to put that on? I mean, give us a sense of what that actually, what was going on, because it seems, you were rigged at some, when was that actually plugged in?
Of course it was blood. Because I needed that.
It gets in really
I
tight,
needed
so-
that dangerous feeling, of course, that I'm singing this Robbie song and something's going to go wrong in a moment. And no, but if we would have shot that scene at the beginning, would have been nothing. But after doing the whole film, all this, and in the green suit and everything, it was just the top. That was just the top, and it came also from his favorite client. She gave it to the club because he was looking where it was, and then he saw it in the makeup room of the transvestite, and that was his idea to take it on. And when they told me that there will be real electricity on my head, I said, how can that be working? Because of course I was thinking I could be on the side to a Michael Jackson song more than anything else, going to the moonwalk. But I didn't do the moonwalk, and I knew it would fall down at one time, and then they had the effect of the electricity, which it did. But I liked the idea. I mean, when I heard it the first time, I thought, what? I'm going to dance with a chandelier on my head and it's lit, electric? Candles, I would have said yes, why not? But electricity in my whole body, and my head and my neck and everywhere. No, but it worked, and it fell down. So, and I liked that scene. And one of my favorite scenes is, of course, when I steal the electric wheelchair, and I don't give a fuck in the city. I go and after smoking, and the cars behind me going out of control, but I don't care.
I really hope that
So
was real
that's,
traffic.
there's a lot of moments which are really were amazing, for me also. It wasn't in the script written like that. We developed it, the film. It wasn't because he didn't know what I was going to do and I didn't know what I was going to do. It came by situation. One of my favorite scenes is at the beginning, the lady in the wheelchair who doesn't talk at all, and I make her hair and put a cigarette in her mouth. That is, if you would do that in another film, it wouldn't mean anything. But at that moment, it meant so much for me. Finally, I can touch somebody and this woman not moving, just have a little smile. And so there was a lot of things which were not in the script like that. They just came by working intense together. And I never had, I was bad. I never had the feeling I'm doing a movie. I stayed in a costume going in the evening and said, could I have a Chardonnay? And then gave the tip and said, keep it. So it became real. The whole city, the street, whole city, Swan Street, in Sandusky where we were shooting, it became basically like the studio. It's not a movie with trailers. I made a lot of them with trailers, and actors are checking how long the trailer is, and if it's not as long as in their contract, the lawyer is coming. Not like that. We just, in the evening, I went to have food in my suit. I went to have sushi in a green suit. They all know me, the man in the green suit. It wasn't any, oh, I have to go home now and change and, be a different person. No, I became that person, with Todd's help, and I stayed that person till the end.
And I do agree, I see it too when I watch the film as a whole, that, that was the one major request that Udo had, was that we basically shoot the film in order, especially starting in the nursing home, And I think it really was key, like you said, most films are shot out of order because, you need to shoot all this stuff in one location, and then go to the next location. But since this was like a journey where you went from one place to the next, we were actually able to schedule it that way, which is rare, But I mean, so that's why I agree that if we shot the thing with the chandelier first, it just wouldn't have. Right, exactly. And so by the time he put that suit on, that was where we were in the story of the sequence, and it really is huge. I agree. I think it was such a wise, I wouldn't have really thought of that so much because I'm just used to shooting it all out of order. But Udo had a really great instinct about that we would do it.
Well, it's like when you build a house, you don't start with the roof.
Right.
That wouldn't
Right.
work. So you have to start from the basic and go. And you don't know. I didn't do hitchhike. I didn't. The woman who gives me a ride, we talked real. I talked to her, told her where I'm going, why I'm there, and all that. So you can only do that as an actor when you shoot chronological. I mean, especially in I hate that word, low budget, but that's what it was, low budget film, but it was much more sensitive and important than maybe if you would have a lot of money, maybe it wouldn't have been the same story. It would have been all of a sudden everybody needed more, and that it worked. I mean, the thing is there's a reason. I do this for 50 years, and in this film, I guess I get the best critic in all America. From Variety to Hollywood Reporter, the best critic I ever got in my life for this independent film. And this is important, and I'm happy. I'm happy for him, of course, for Todd, that people recognize the press and the audience his film, and now it's the premiere in 2 or 3 days, and then it's the premiere in Palm Springs, where I live. I cannot live in town anymore because I need space. And in the desert, I have all the space I want. And I live in Palm Springs, and I have a ranch with I have no animals. I have a plastic horse in life size called Max von Sydow. And when I do pictures, then I take my cowboy hat and I become the cowboy, have some hay in my hand, and the horse is behind me. And it works because the horse has to be slightly out of focus, then it looks real. So there where I live, and there we have the premiere on Saturday evening in Palm Springs, and it's going to be fun because it's my town, and I invited my friends. So let's see how people. But it's very strange tonight when I was sitting there for 20 minutes. There is nothing you don't like. It is real. I mean, I'm still sad. I'm sad of seeing myself for 20 minutes at the end. It is sad, but it's real. There's no makeup, there is no wrong movement, there is maybe some kind of free movement, but there is no wrong movement. And wonderful, wonderful. I'm very happy.
I want to open this up, but I just have to say, the scene where you get the suit, when you tell the woman who's giving
There
the
is
suit,
one problem. I like the suit. Oh, I have no money. And then I go to the park and she put $100 in my pocket. Wonderful.
I was gonna say, when you remember who she is and then you tell her that Yuri is still there,
Yes.
that moment was absolutely masterful. I thought it was so beautiful.
And
Now you have some questions.
Yes.
Because that's why we're here.
Yes,
Not
right
to talk
there.
about ourselves all evening.
I loved the movie. I loved all those minor and the young man with the truck, who originally offered to drag you all the way.
She said, you know, the farmer that helped you on your trip, you know, why did you, she's surprised that you turned down the offer for him to take you into town. Because he was kind of cute.
Because maybe he was too good looking to take the action away from myself. It was only me, baby. Going back home.
That's good.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. It's probably one of my favorite movies now. I'm just wondering how making this movie changed your view about death and mortality and growing old.
You're talking to me? Or
Well, I
him?
guess both of you.
But
Both of
can
you,
you-
'cause it's
can you
just
take the
something I
mask
think about
off?
a lot.
Can you
Hold
take
on.
it off for a moment? I cannot hear you.
I'll repeat it just to.
Okay.
So she's asking how making this film has maybe changed your own view on growing old and sort of death and mortality.
Of course not. Honey, I'm fit. I'm 77 years old. I'm still dancing. There is no problem. And that's why also I like the movie, because the age difference of somebody like me having a heart attack in a retirement home, 77 years old, and then get that stupid offer and I say, bury everybody here, I'm retired. But then it comes and he goes back and he succeeds. He succeeds going back, and the people not vivante everywhere, and the people say, what? And it's going back in time. That was for me the how do you say that in English? That was for me one of the key moment in this film. That this old man, retired, folding, looking at the old women, they're eating their sandwich and they're just ready to die. And he all of a sudden saying, well, $25,000. Okay, why not? I can go back. And that's for the reason he goes back. And I like the script was so good, and the whole action, going to buy cigarettes. And I like the line when I said to this big butch man, you must think how somebody who lives on Social Security can afford these cigarettes. There were so many very funny, touching moments in the film, and yeah, I would do it again.
That's good. Yeah.
Hi. You talked earlier about race and ethnicity in terms of casting, and I know a lot of the really good emotional moments with Pat is also with people of color, specifically black people working in this industrial town. Was that intentional or so intentional? What was your motivation for doing so?
It was intentional because, I mean, that, you know, that's a town I grew up in, and Sandusky's always been, it's like about a third black, you know, African American. So I was trying to reflect, you know, my experience, and trying to reflect the town accurately, you know. And, you know, I grew up, that's, you know, I grew up, you know, with a bunch of, you know, with a luckily in like a diverse community, and I'm really happy about that. But I just wanted to reflect that in the reality of the town, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned that you spoke to Pat's family, his sister, and nephews and nieces, and I was curious what made you decide not to include them in the film.
Who's to say they're not in there? You know. Actually, the woman in the truck, you never hear her name, but I named her Janie after Pat's sister. And some of Pat's family at the end, when they wheel him out, his niece and nephews are all standing there watching him be wheeled out the door. So yeah, they're in there. They're in there. Yeah. Anybody else?
Time for Chardonnay.
Oh yes, sir. Yeah.
I also noticed a bunch of the producers, their names appeared as if they'd been in the film in some small roles or something. But my questions are, one for Udo, the flamboyant background. I mean, was that you once upon a time? And That's one question. And then the other is, how did you balance, it seems to be made about a real person, but then there's still that disclaimer at the end in the credits how it's not based, it's all fiction, it's not based on somebody real. Is that just something you legally have to do?
Every movie always says that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just lawyer stuff, I guess. But he said, like, you know, his flamboyance, was that you when you were younger, like the flamboyant part, or?
Well, when I was younger, I mean, why are you moving your head like that? I'm sorry, oh, God. Wait till we get out of here. No, the thing is, I grew up, it has a lot to do with me. I grew up in Germany at the end of the war, and I didn't like the whole idea, so I went to England to learn English, and I was discovered for movies. I didn't want to be an actor. But that was the time, of course, I grew up with John Waters, Andy Warhol, and Keith Haring, all the people in New York. Of course, there were a lot of David Bowie. I know David Bowie when he was an actor. David Bowie started as an actor before he became a singer. And I know all these people. I know, of course, Elton John. I know all these people, and some of them are very flamboyant. But I watched. I'm a voyeur, watching people, and it's the same with acting. I made films for 50 years or longer. I never been to acting school. I became a professor, there's another story. But I watched my colleagues. I was lucky that I worked with Martin Landau and a lot of great actors, and I watched, and I learned. And sometimes I thought, no, you can never do that, that's ridiculous. And so it has to do with me, of course. And you know, I have grown up, I have a lot of friends who died of AIDS when there wasn't any medication, like today. Luckily, people take one tablet a day, and it's even undetectable. So, but you know, I grew up in this period of time also, this like Pat. So that was my time in another, not of course in Sandusky, but in another town, but it's the same, with the same feeling. Yes.
Last quick question. Are you going to show it in Sandusky?
Yes, we are going to show it in Sandusky. It's opening, you know, it opens in the theater, I think it's like in 3 theaters in LA, at the Royal, and in Pasadena somewhere, and another one, can't remember. But it opens on Friday, this Friday, and in like 50 cities in America, including Sandusky, Ohio. So that I'm very interested in how it does in New York and LA and all that, but it's like I care most about how it does in my hometown. And right now, that theater that you saw, you know, toward the end when he walks by the marquee, right now, up on the marquee it says Swan Song opens Friday, you know. And yeah, so really cool.
Yes.
Your acting in the retirement home is so great that it touched the heart, and really it was remarkable in your retirement home. In the beginning part of it, the acting was so wonderful, and it touched the reality of the senior people at the same time. And the character you play, I'm sure you don't follow David's like a gay, in real life you are not, am I right?
Yeah, he's asking if you're
Maybe
gay.
you don't answer that.
That's,
What?
He's
Say
asking
it.
if you're gay in real life, and now you want to answer that.
Why, you want to sleep with me? You evil man. Stand up, take your jacket off, show yourself, then I answer you the question. So,
No, your acting is so wonderful.
say, yeah, now you say it, right? Wait till you have your jacket off, man. No, yeah. I said I watched tonight 20 minutes, and I'm sad. I'm still sad. It's.
Why are you sad? Like, what do you mean by that?
I mean, how real it is. My eyes, my look when I talk. There is not one moment of acting. It is real. And then in a close-up, you see good that I have no makeup on my face. You see the wrinkles, and that's wonderful. You know, if you do a film in Hollywood, it takes hours to depends how old they want you, and that wasn't there. It was me, and it was, and I just saw the last 20 minutes. It's my feeling. It is for the situation. It wasn't. Let's say the better way of saying it. It wasn't calculated from me. Now when I go in, I have to do this. No, it was. I was confronted with situation, and I tried to be honest to do it.
There were, you're talking about the nursing home at the beginning, and we were talking about Miss Gertie, the woman in the wheelchair. I remember, I think, by the way, to my producers, my husband Tim and my best friend Eric, they're standing back there. They're producers in the movie. Thank you, guys. But guys, I remember, do you guys remember, I can't remember if it was day like 2 or day 3, that at the end of the day, the first 3 days of the shoot were in the nursing home. And I think it was at the end of the second day that was the Miss Gertie scene. And sometimes when you make a film, there's these moments when the crew is like electrified. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh shit, this is something's happening. Something special is happening here, you know? And I will never forget that when we shot that scene with Annie, who was literally cast the day before, the other woman who was supposed to do it, who I originally wanted, like dropped out at the last minute. And I auditioned Annie for the woman in the truck, but wound up with going with Kathy. But so then as soon as the other woman dropped out, I was like, what about Annie? And boom, she was there, you know? And it was like, I mean, that woman sat there in a chair for like hours and stared at the wall in that wheelchair. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And when Udo came and started touching her hair or whatever, I mean, we were all crying, and it's just like, wow. I just knew, you know, sometimes you just know that something special is happening, you know.
But also, for example, when we shot the cemetery, I had never seen the stone. I did not want to see the stone with my name, and the whole crew understood. I didn't want to speak, and I went around and I was just waiting for a little wave from top of his hand that the scene is ready, and I went and I saw the first time in my life my name on the stone. So that's you can, if you would do that in a Hollywood movie, they would say you're crazy, you're an actor, you should be able to. But I didn't want to act, I wanted to feel, which I did. You know, of course there's always an actor acts a little bit, but it wasn't calculated acting. And so we did that to the whole film, till, you know.
That's a really good example because, you know, blocking is like how an actor moves in the scene. They walk from this mark to this mark, and this happens and that happens. And with the cemetery scene, we didn't figure out what the blocking was. We didn't calculate that. We just set the camera up in a wider shot, and like Udo said, kind of like he came in. I didn't know what he was going to do, you know. I don't know if he knew what he was going to do. I don't know. But he sat down on the bench. He sat there. He looked at the stone. He got up. He walked over to the stone, and he. I mean, it's actually going to make me cry now. But he like hugged the stone, you know. And it was like we were all just like, oh my God, you know. Because it was just so real. It just was so real in the moment, and yeah, that's what this film was, and I'm so glad, you know, I kind of wanted to rehearse more before the shoot because I'm used to doing that. And Udo was really clear that, like, let's not calculate it. Let's not set these like goals that we're trying to hit, you know, and let's just be in the moment and let it happen. I learned so much from working with him as a director, to just let it happen naturally and not try to manufacture it.
Yeah.
Before I let you guys go,
Yeah.
I need my Chardonnay.
okay, I just have to say, after you've gotten these incredible reviews and you've made this incredibly beautiful movie, and I know you've had an amazing couple of years recently, you've worked with a lot of great filmmakers, you've made some amazing films recently. Now with all of this going on, are you and Lars going to finish The Kingdom?
I just did it.
You finished it. You
Yes.
shot it.
3 weeks ago.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing.
Because in the beginning, so almost 25 years ago when we started, I was little brother. And of course now I'm big brother, and I worked in a tank. I'm underwater till my nose. And yeah, I did 3 or 4 weeks ago. We did the end, The Kingdom is finished. It's the Exodus, it's the end of the kingdom. Yeah, I did this.
That is magnificent news. I had no idea.
You're speechless, I see.
I really am. No, you have no idea.
No, but it's like, you know, I'm a lucky man. I did Bacurau.
Yes.
Another
Another amazing
I
film.
did The Painted Bird with Harvey Keitel. So but I like this film.
Well,
That is.
this is it. Honestly, Todd, what an achievement. I've loved Udo's performances for decades now, but I've never seen this side of him, and it's a beautiful, amazing performance. It's completely
I'm very
unique.
proud of that.
That's a great goodbye word.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.